The underground poker room beneath Miami's Sunset Harbor breathed like a living thing. Green felt tables stretched into smoke-hazed darkness, each one ringed with stacks of cash and chips that caught the amber light from hanging fixtures like pieces of broken gold. Armed guards stood silent at steel doors. The air hung thick with cigar smoke and the smell of expensive whiskey and desperation. Vivien Morales sat collapsed against the brick wall near the bathroom corridor. Her delivery scooter uniform hung soaked through from the November rain outside, the fabric clinging to her thin frame. Mascara tracked down her face in dark rivers. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her body, from a place where hope had finally run out. In her trembling hand she clutched a worn photograph. The edges were soft from being held too many times, the colors faded by months of being pressed against her chest. Noah's face smiled back at her. 8 years old. Gaped with grin. His eyes held the kind of hope that only children still believed in. $2 million sat on the main poker table 15 feet away. Salvatore Ferraro stood at the head of that table, midnight black suit tailored so perfectly that the stitching was invisible, his white shirt open at the collar showing the shadow of his chest. His Korean features were sharp as broken glass in the cigar smoke. 47 years old but moving like a man who had learned to carry his years like weapons. Dark hair silvered at the temples. Eyes that burned like they had seen things that could not be unseen. He was finishing a hand. His hand. $200,000 in the center of the table. The other players folded, one after another, like dominoes collapsing. Salvatore reached forward to pull the chips toward him. Then he froze. Mid-movement. His entire body turned to stone. His bodyguards Sergio and Gino, positioned at the north and south corners of the room, exchanged confused glances. In 15 years of working for Salvatore Ferraro, they had never seen him stop. Never. Not during business deals that involved federal judges. Not during the night his brother betrayed him and disappeared with $12 million and a child. Not during the wars that had cost 12 men their lives. But he stopped now. His eyes locked on the photograph in her shaking hands. The color drained from his face like someone had opened a valve and let all the blood pour out. He stared at that image of the boy like a man looking at a ghost. Like a man seeing something that should not exist in the world. Vivien did not see him yet. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved in something that might have been prayer or might have been a final goodbye. The room held its breath. The silence was so complete that you could hear the ice cubes melting in the glasses on the side table. You could hear the distant sound of traffic on the street above, a world that kept turning while hers stopped. Salvatore's hand dropped to his side. The chips were forgotten. The $200,000 were forgotten. There was only the boy. Only the face. He began to walk toward her. His footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. Click. 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 Each step measured and deliberate, the way a predator moves through tall grass. She did not look up until his shadow fell across her face. What happened next was something no one in that room could explain. When Salvatore Ferraro knelt down beside the broken woman on the cold floor, his men felt something shift in the universe. In 15 years of loyalty, they had never seen him do anything like this. Never bend. Never kneel. Never lower himself to anyone. May I see it? His voice came out like venom poured over ice. Quiet. Dangerous. Shattered. Vivien flinched. Her eyes flew open. She saw the shadow of a man in expensive cloth and found herself staring at eyes that burned with something between rage and grief. My name is Salvatore Ferraro, he said. His hand moved toward the photograph. I need you to tell me where you got this picture. She pulled it away, clutching it harder. Stay away from me. Please. You're like all the rest. You're like Tyler. You're like all of them. I am not, he said. The words came out flat. Final. Like a judge pronouncing sentence. Tell me the boy's name. Her breath came in short, broken gasps. How do you know about him? Who are you? What do you want from him? His name, Salvatore repeated. His hand did not move. His eyes never left her face. Tell me his name and I will tell you something that will explain why I am on my knees on this floor begging you to trust me. Vivien's voice came out barely a whisper, trembling like a candle in the wind. Noah. His name is Noah. Salvatore closed his eyes. When he opened them again, tears were rolling down his face like rain on asphalt. In 15 years, Sergio and Gino had never seen their boss cry. Not once. Not even when he learned about his brother's betrayal. Not even when they found the empty apartment where the child had been taken. Noah, he breathed. My God. Noah. The clock on the wall above the bar showed 3:22 a.m. in red digital numbers. 11 hours earlier, Vivien had punched in for her shift at Marino's restaurant on Biscayne Boulevard. The kitchen was chaos, pots clattering, steam rising, the shouting of a dozen cooks trying to survive the Friday night rush. She wore the white polo shirt with the Marino's logo, the same shirt she had worn for nights a week for the past 18 months. It had a small hole near the left pocket that she had tried to stitch 3 times. The stitches never held. $2. That was all she had to her name before her shift started. $2 in her apron pocket, rolled up with 3 rubber bands because her purse had broken and she could not afford to replace it. Tyler Brennan emerged from his office like a scorpion crawling out from under a rock. 42 years old, hair dyed jet black to cover the grey suit that cost more than Vivien made in 2 weeks. He owned a 30% stake in Marino's, which meant he owned the right to steal from people like her. Morales, he called out, snapping his fingers. I need you on table 6 and table 10. Double up tonight. We're short a girl. Yes, Mr. Brennan, Vivien said. She moved through the dining room like a ghost, quiet and faithful and invisible. This was her gift, the ability to fade into the background so completely that customers forgot she was human. They left tips based on mood, not service. She had learned not to expect much. The night moved like it always did. Plates carried out, complaints made and fixed, drinks refilled, money taken from tables and deposited in her apron pocket where she could see it. See it but not keep it. By 10:44 p.m., she had collected $73 in tips. At 11:15 p.m., she approached Tyler Brennan's office with the money in her trembling hands. This was the ritual. This was how it worked. He reached out and took it from her like a collector taking pennies from a child. $73, he said, counting it slowly. He pocketed 65 of them. These are my tips. You get what's left. He handed her $8. But sir, I earned. You earned what I say you earned. You want more? Work harder. Now get back out there. Table 4 needs water. She walked back into the dining room with $8 added to her apron. By the end of her shift at 2:22 a.m., the total had grown to $41. Enough to buy groceries. Enough to keep Noah fed for 4 more days. But it was not enough for the surgery. Outside, Miami's November rain fell like it was angry at the world. Vivien sat on her scooter in the delivery lot and pulled out a small notebook from her jacket pocket. Inside were penciled numbers that represented the entire structure of her life. $65,000 needed in 3 days. Beneath that, the surgery date for Noah. His tumor had grown. The doctor said 3 weeks without treatment meant 3 weeks closer to the point where no treatment would work. She had the notebook memorized. She could recite every number, every deadline, every impossible calculation. Then came the sound. Footsteps behind her. Heavy footsteps. More than one person. She turned and saw 3 men approaching through the rain. The first one was Tyler Brennan. The other 2 were people she had never seen before. Problem, Vivien, Tyler called out, his voice slick as oil. You've been asking questions about the shelter. About Noah. Her entire body went cold. I never? You have been talking to people. Social workers. Cops maybe. Making inquiries. He stepped closer. The rain soaked through his expensive suit and he did not even notice. That's a problem because you are asking about things that are not your concern. The two men with him were larger, broader, the kind of men who got paid to make problems go away. What do you want? Vivien whispered. I want you to remember that you work for me. That you live because I allow you to live. That the boy, Noah, stays safe as long as you stop asking questions and start keeping your mouth shut. You understand me? She understood. She understood that Noah was in danger. She understood that people were using him for something dark. She understood that she had exactly 72 hours to save him or he would disappear into a network so deep that no one would ever find him. The men turned and walked away, their footsteps fading into the rain. Vivien sat on her scooter and did the only thing she could do. She broke down. Her shoulders heaved with sobs that came from the place where souls are broken. Her hands shook. Her vision blurred. She did not know where to go. She did not know who to trust. She did not know that 3 blocks away, in an underground poker room beneath the city's glittering surface, a man was about to discover that the child in a photograph was his own son, taken from him 8 years ago by his betraying brother. She only knew that she had $2 and 3 days and a boy who was running out of time. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. But first, everything had to shatter. The scooter sputtered twice before the engine caught, coughing black smoke into the humid Miami afternoon. 2:47 in the afternoon on a Tuesday that felt exactly like every other Tuesday, except it wasn't. The engine sound was wrong, a metallic grinding that meant money Vivien did not have to spend. She sat on the worn seat, her delivery bag slung across her chest, and counted the bills in her pocket for the 3rd time that hour. $47. Nearly $50, which meant groceries for the week, which meant she could stretch the food stamps until Friday, which meant breathing room for one more day in a life that had stopped offering breathing room years ago. The duct tape holding her helmet strapped together had started to peel at the edges. She pressed it down again, knowing it would not hold much longer. Everything in her life was held together with duct tape and prayers that were running out of power. The bag smelled like old grease and rain that had not yet fallen but was coming. Dark clouds gathered over Biscayne Bay like a fist closing. Brennan's waterfront grill sat on the boulevard like a monument to everything she would never have. Stainless steel kitchen visible through the window, white tablecloths, servers moving like dancers across a stage set. Vivien pushed open the back door and stepped into the controlled cool of the air conditioning. The kitchen thrummed with noise, sizzling pans, shouted orders, the beep of timers. She made her way to the time clock on the wall. Tyler Brennan stood waiting. He was always waiting. 38 years old with slicked-back black hair that caught the kitchen light and a gold watch on his wrist that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His shirt was open at the collar, showing a chest covered in dark hair, and his smile was the smile of a man who had learned that kindness was a weakness he could afford not to possess. He blocked her path with his body like a wall made of muscle and cruelty. Empty your pockets, Morales. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. Random inspection. Vivien's stomach dropped. She had heard this before. The first time, she had believed it was random. After the 10th time, she understood it was choreography. She pulled the bills from her pocket with trembling fingers and held them out to him. $47. Her survival arranged in worn paper rectangles. He took $45 and placed 2 singles back into her palm with the gesture of a king granting mercy. Consider it your contribution to operational costs. We all sacrifice for the restaurant family, Vivien. It builds character. He smiled wider, showing teeth that were too white, too perfect, too much like a predator's. You have a problem with that? No. She could not afford to have a problem. Problems were a luxury for people who had options. Good. Because if you have a problem, I will have to find a replacement. And replacements are easy to find. Applicants are lined up around the block for your position. You understand that, yes? She understood. She understood perfectly. She nodded and turned to leave before the understanding showed on her face where he could see it. One more thing. His voice stopped her at the door. Do not talk to people about the restaurant. Not customers, not friends, not social workers. Not anyone. You understand what I am saying? The question landed like a stone in deep water. I don't talk to anyone. Good. Keep it that way. The storm was building strength when Vivien pulled away from the restaurant. The wind had picked up, pushing her scooter sideways on the road. She drove north towards Sacred Heart Children's Home on 8th Street, the $2 in her pocket feeling like an accusation. The shelter sat in a neighborhood that had given up hope years ago, in a building painted institutional beige, with bars on the windows that were not quite bars, they were security features, the director called them, which meant the same thing. Noah was in the common room doing homework at a plastic table. 8 years old with dark eyes that had seen too much for someone who should have seen nothing but Saturday morning cartoons and birthday cake. His clothes were hand-me-downs from the donation bins, too big at the shoulders, and his shoes were falling apart at the seams. When he saw Vivien, his entire face transformed. Miss Vivien! He jumped up and ran to her, and she dropped to her knees to catch him, her arms around his thin shoulders. She had brought him a burger from the restaurant, wrapped in foil and still warm. She pulled it from her bag and set it on the table in front of him. He ate like he was afraid the burger might disappear, like food could vanish without warning, which in his life it could. When can I leave here? He asked between bites. His voice was small. Small and hopeful in a way that broke something inside her chest. She forced a smile. Soon, sweetheart. I am working on it. I promise you. But the promise was a lie, and she tasted it in her mouth like blood. The director, Margaret Chen, found her in the hallway as Vivien was preparing to leave. Margaret was 54 years old with grey hair and eyes that had seen every kind of suffering that money could not prevent. She pulled Vivien into her office and closed the door. We have a situation. Margaret sat behind her desk and folded her hands. People have been asking about Noah. Calling, visiting, offering money. Large amounts of money. I had a social worker in yesterday who was asking questions I did not like the sound of. About his placement, his family history, his availability. Vivien felt the room begin to spin. I made some calls to people I trust. Child Protective Services contacts, people in the system. Margaret's voice was steady but her eyes were afraid. There is a network, Vivien. I cannot describe it fully because I do not fully understand it, but these people are connected to something much larger. Something very dark. Noah is exactly the age they are targeting. He is vulnerable. He has no family. He is invisible to the system. What are you saying? I am saying that I need money to transfer him to protected custody upstate. A facility that specializes in children at risk. The transfer is legal but it costs money. $65,000. I need it by Friday at midnight, or the law requires me to release him to standard social services, and these people have contacts in social services. Do you understand what I am telling you? Vivien understood. She understood that she had $2 in her pocket and 3 days and a boy who was running out of time. I can find it, Vivien whispered. I will find it. But even as she said the words, she knew she was lying. $65,000. Impossible. Astronomical. A number from a different universe. The evening shift began at 7:30, and the storm broke across Miami like a weapon. Lightning cracked over Biscayne Bay and the rain came down in sheets that turned the streets into rivers. Vivien delivered through the wealthy neighborhoods, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, Palmetto Avenue where the mansions sat behind gates like fortresses. She made her deliveries, collected tips in soggy bills, and drove through water that pooled above her scooter's wheels. By the time she returned to the restaurant at 11:45 that night, her hands were numb from cold and her dress was soaked through. She had made $23 in tips across 4 hours. Tyler was waiting at the time clock again. He took $21 and left her with 2 singles. $2. She had entered her shift with $2. She was leaving with $2. The universe had arranged itself perfectly to teach her the exact shape and size of her powerlessness. The rain hammered against the windows as she stood in the kitchen holding those 2 bills. The storm had turned the outside world into something unrecognizable: dark water, lightning splitting the sky, wind that sounded like screaming. But what she did not know, what Vivien had no way of knowing as she stood in that fluorescent-lit kitchen counting 2 lonely dollars, was that 3 blocks away, beneath the city's glittering surface, in an underground poker room where men in expensive suits played for money that would take her a decade to earn, a man named Salvatore Ferraro was about to discover a photograph that would change everything. The rain hammered against the plastic windscreen of her scooter like it was trying to break through. Vivien Morales sat beneath the fluorescent glow of a closed gas station on Flagler Street, her wet dress clinging to her ribs, counting soggy bills with trembling fingers. $2. That was everything now. 2 single-dollar bills and a phone screen showing 11:56 p.m. on a Tuesday night that felt like the last night of her life. She pulled up her banking app. The numbers didn't lie. Never did. The checking account showed negative 43 cents. The savings account, laughable, contained $8.16, money she'd hidden in a mason jar for 3 years like a child. $65,000 needed by Friday midnight. 3 days. 72 hours. She did the mathematics that had become her obsession, the calculation that consumed every waking moment. If she worked every single shift without sleeping. If she kept every delivery tip without Tyler Brennan's thieving hand stealing it at the time clock. If she somehow, impossibly, delivered 200 orders at an average of $30 each. Still short by $40,000. The numbers mocked her. They always had. Noah's face glowed from her phone wallpaper. She'd taken the photo 3 months ago at Sacred Heart Children's Shelter where she volunteered every Sunday. He was 8 years old, gap-toothed, holding up a drawing he'd made of a house with stick figures. His face was everything. His existence was the only mathematics that actually mattered. The shelter director's words from 2 days ago still burned in her ears. Social services got a call. Someone reported that Noah's guardianship is compromised. They're initiating removal procedures. Vivien, the trafficking networks in this city, they target kids in the system. Kids without families. Without protection. I've been told he's on a list. If we don't find legitimate family placement by Friday, they move him into state custody, and after that. The director's voice had cracked. After that, we lose him. Vivien had asked the question everyone asked in situations like this, the question that revealed how desperate she'd become. How much would it take to fast-track private guardianship? To get him into a safe house? To create enough legal documentation that he's protected? $65,000. Her delivery app buzzed. One final order. 11:53 p.m. The location made her stomach tighten immediately. Sunset Harbor Marina. Downtown address. The pickup restaurant was Italian, upscale, Brickell location. The order note read, underground entrance. Private delivery. Cash on delivery. $850 pickup cost plus tip. She knew what underground poker rooms meant in Miami. She'd grown up around men who played in them. Men with money that smelled like violence. Men with hands that moved too fast and voices that could ruin lives with a single word. $850 could become $900 with a tip. Maybe more. Every single dollar reduced the impossible gap by another fraction. She accepted the order before her good judgment could stop her. The ride through the rain took 12 minutes. Streets turned to rivers. Lightning cracked over Biscayne Bay. Her scooter hydroplaned twice, and she nearly went down, but her legs caught pavement and she stayed upright. The address was a converted warehouse near the marina, all red brick and high windows dark against the rain. The entrance to the underground section was exactly where the order note said it would be. A steel door with a keypad. An armed guard in a tailored suit standing beneath an awning, smoking a cigar that cost more than her entire week's earnings. "Delivery," she said, holding up the food bag. He didn't smile. Just nodded and pressed a buzzer. The door clicked open. She descended concrete stairs that smelled like humidity and money. The poker room was everything she'd feared and expected. Cigar smoke so thick it hung like clouds. Tables covered in green felt. Stacks of cash and chips that totaled millions, millions that had nothing to do with work or survival or any honest mathematics of living. Men in suits worth more than her entire year's salary sat in leather chairs, their faces expressing nothing, playing with money that could change her life and meant nothing to them. She delivered the food to a corner table. A scarred man in his 40s took the bag and tipped her $50. She pocketed it quickly, her heart already racing to leave. That's when she heard the voice. "Morales. What the hell are you doing here?" Tyler Brennan emerged from the bathroom corridor, and her stomach dropped like she'd been pushed from a building. He was wearing a suit she'd never seen before, expensive, tailored, the kind of suit that meant he was deeper in something than she'd realized. He was playing at a table with serious men. Serious money. "I'm just delivering," she said quietly. "You followed me. You're spying." He moved toward her. His hand closed around her arm, and he dragged her toward the bathroom corridor, away from the main room where anyone might see. His grip bruised instantly. "No, I swear, it's just an order." He shoved her against the brick wall. The sound of impact echoed down the empty corridor. She dropped her bag. Her phone fell out. The photo of Noah slipped from her bag and landed face up on the concrete floor. Tyler sneered down at it. "That your kid? Cute. Be a shame if social services found out you're working illegal hours, taking him to unsafe environments, keeping him in shelters instead of getting him proper guardianship. I know people at the state office. One call from me, Anne." That's when she broke. 8 years of stolen tips. 8 years of forced overtime. 8 years of his hands lingering too long in the walk-in freezer. 8 years of pretending she was nothing while he made decisions about her life. Before Tyler came the other men, the ones who left scars across her back like a road map drawn in pain, cigarette burns, belt marks, knife cuts that never fully healed. She'd never reported any of it. Who would believe her? She slid down the wall and started crying. Not quiet tears. Broken, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deeper than her lungs. From the place where 8-year-old Noah lived in her chest. From the place where every impossible day collected and finally became too heavy to carry. Tyler walked away laughing. She sat alone against the cold brick, clutching Noah's photograph, rain somewhere above her, darkness everywhere. The time on her phone read 1:15 a.m. She didn't hear the footsteps approach. Salvatore Ferraro had just walked away from the main poker table $40,000 richer. He'd been thinking about territorial disputes in Little Havana, about negotiations with the Ochoa cartel's new lieutenant, about the endless chess game that consumed his mind every waking hour. He was a man of 47 years who'd learned to feel nothing, to move through the world like a weapon wrapped in an expensive suit. Then he saw her. The woman sat alone on the concrete floor of a bathroom corridor, shoulders shaking, clutching a small photograph. His men, Sergio and Gino, stood 3 steps behind him, ready for whatever their boss required. Salvatore crouched down. His $5,000 suit touched the dirty floor without hesitation. "Where did you get that photograph?" His voice came out barely controlled, like something dangerous was waking up inside his chest. She looked up, eyes swollen from crying, terrified of him. He's a boy at the shelter where I volunteer," she whispered. "What shelter?" "Sacred Heart. On 8th Street. Why?" He took the photograph with hands that shook. Sergio's intake of breath told him his lieutenant saw it too. In that photograph was a boy of 8 years old. Gap-toothed. Smiling. Holding up a drawing of a house with stick figures inside. 8 years ago, Salvatore Ferraro's own brother had sold information to the Ochoa cartel. Information that included the location of Salvatore's 6-month-old son. They'd taken him from his crib on a January night. No ransom demand. No negotiation. Just gone. Salvatore had buried every person involved in that theft. He'd spent 8 years searching. 8 years believing his son was dead. 8 years becoming the exact kind of man that the world feared because feeling nothing was the only way to survive it. "This is my son," he said quietly. Gino's mouth opened. Sergio whispered, "Boss, what?" "His name is Noah." Salvatore asked the woman. "Yes." "He's 8. He's been at Sacred Heart for 3 years. Before that, foster care. Before that, I don't know. The records are sealed." Salvatore touched the photograph like it might disintegrate in his hands. One hand gripped the wall for support. His face broke, not crying, but something deeper, something that hadn't surfaced in 8 years. "My brother sold my family to the cartel," he said to her. "They came in the night and took my son when he was 6 months old. I found every person involved. I buried them. But I never found him. I never found him." The woman stared at him, understanding dawning. Understanding and fear and something else, recognition that this man had been suffering a version of the same loss she carried. They moved to a private room off the main floor. Salvatore sat across from Vivien Morales at a small table while his men guarded the door. The cigar smoke filtered in through the walls. "Why are you crying in a poker room at 2 in the morning?" he asked. "Because I need $65,000 by Friday midnight to save Noah from being taken by traffickers, and I have $2. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I deliver food on a scooter. My manager steals my tips. The math doesn't work." She told him everything. Tyler Brennan's theft, his threats, his hands that lingered. The shelter director's warning. The network's closing in. The scars on her back from men before him, marks she'd never reported because her own survival had required staying invisible. Salvatore listened without interrupting. His hands rested on the table, steady now. "Show me your back," he said finally. She hesitated. "Please," he added. She turned and lifted her shirt halfway. The scars mapped her entire spine. Cigarette burns arranged like constellations. Belt marks. Knife wounds that never fully healed. A geography of suffering drawn across her body. Salvatore's hands balled into fists. "Who did this?" "It doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me." At 2:31 a.m., he made a call. His voice was steady, controlled, lethal. By 2:56 a.m., there was a stack of cash on the table between them. $65,000 in $100 bills. "Give this to the shelter director. Noah will be protected." Vivien stared at it like she was looking at something from another dimension. "Why would you help me? I'm nobody. You protected my son when I couldn't. That makes you everything." She left with the money at 3:04 a.m. Salvatore watched her go, then made 3 more calls. One to his lawyer. One to his tech specialist. One to a federal contact he'd cultivated for exactly this kind of purpose. Tyler Brennan's life just started its countdown. Meanwhile, across the city in his Brickell condo, Tyler was counting his poker winnings on a marble countertop. He texted his partner about new inventory, coded language for the trafficking network. He had no idea his phone was about to become evidence. And in her Star Island mansion, Victoria Ashford was finishing a call about loose ends that needed eliminating. She was 45, elegant, the founder of Ashford Development Group, publicly known for her charity work with children's causes. Privately, she ran the financial infrastructure for the entire exploitation ring. Her assistant was texting her a photograph, a woman leaving Salvatore Ferraro's poker room at 3 a.m., carrying a paper bag full of something. Victoria's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she read the message. Something was changing. Something was beginning. The rain fell like bullets against the hospital windows as Vivien sat motionless in the waiting room. Summer thunderstorm. Savage. Unrelenting. Outside, lightning split the sky every few seconds, turning the world white and terrible. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed their electric prayer. Her phone buzzed again. And again. And again. Channel 7 News requesting comment. The shelter director warning her. Her foster coordinator saying words like pending review and removal procedures. Each notification felt like a fist closing around her throat. She stared at the screen without reading anymore. What was the point? Victoria Ashford had spent the last month methodically dismantling her reputation. The philanthropist appeared on radio shows discussing irregularities in foster care placement. The charity foundation founder spoke to journalists about connections to known criminals. The elegant woman in designer suits held press conferences with photographs, Vivien at the park with Noah, Vivien leaving the poker room at 3 in the morning, Vivien with bruises on her wrist that could mean anything Victoria wanted them to mean. Lies dressed in perfect tailoring and charitable concern. And Tyler Brennan had resurfaced 3 days ago like something rising from a grave. The memory made her stomach clench. Thursday night at her apartment building. 9 o'clock. She had been loading her scooter when she heard his voice. That voice. The one that had stolen her tips, stolen her peace, stolen pieces of herself she'd never recover. You thought transferring me would end this. His hand had closed on her wrist, the old grip, the old control. She had jerked away hard enough to feel something tear in her shoulder. He had laughed. Laughed. You think your rich boyfriend can protect you? Victoria's going to destroy you on every channel in Miami. Unless you convince Ferraro to back off her operations. She had not answered him. She had not even looked at his face. She had simply gotten on her scooter and ridden away while he called after her, Friday night, Vivien. Channel 7 News. Guess whose face is going to be front and center? Enjoy your last few days of freedom. And now it was Friday. And she sat soaked in her own sweat under hospital lights, watching her life collapse in real time on a phone screen. At 10:27 p.m., Vivien made a decision. She stood. Her legs felt hollow. The hospital corridor stretched toward an exit sign like a tunnel with no bottom. She walked it anyway. The emergency room doors slid open. Outside, the storm had intensified. The rain was so heavy she could barely see 10 feet ahead. The parking lot seemed to disappear into chaos. She drove her scooter not toward home but toward South Point Park. The ocean at night during a hurricane was something beyond human comprehension. The waves didn't crash anymore, they attacked. The rain fell at angles impossible in a still world. The lightning revealed everything and nothing. Vivien stood at the edge of the concrete point, staring into the violence, and felt something inside her bend toward breaking. 8 years. 8 years of fighting. 8 years of scars and stolen wages and terror in the dark. 8 years of building something small and fragile and beautiful with Noah. And it was all ending the same way, powerful people crushing her because they could. Because she was nobody. Because nobody protected nobodies. Her hands shook. Not from cold. From something deeper. Something that looked like surrender. She stepped toward the water. The rain hammered her face. The ocean roared. One more step. The waves looked almost inviting, dark, endless, final. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it. Another vibration. And another. She pulled it out to silence it. The screen showed a call. From Noah. She stared at his name. Noah Ferraro, shelter kid too small for his age. The boy who had drawn her a picture of colors for sad days. The boy who had learned to trust her. The boy who was supposed to be hers. She answered. His small voice broke through the storm. Miss Vivien? I had a nightmare. Are you okay? Silence. The kind of silence that contained an entire choice. "I'm okay, sweetheart," she said. Her voice cracked. "I'm okay. I'll be home soon." She turned away from the water. Turned away from the edge. Turned away from surrender. One small hand pulling her back. One voice saying, "I need you." That was enough. That was everything. At 6:15 p.m. that same evening, 3 blocks away in Star Island's most expensive zip code, Salvatore Ferraro made a phone call. His voice was steady. Controlled. Lethal. "Now," he said, and the word contained a siege. 12 men in black moved like ghosts through Miami's elite corridors. Team 1 hit Victoria Ashford's mansion at 6:22 p.m. Federal warrants in hand. FBI, not Salvatore's men, but Salvatore had spent 3 months making sure they had everything they needed. He had walked them through the digital infrastructure. He had provided names of accountants. He had given them the encryption keys to offshore accounts. Victoria was in her dressing room on the 2nd floor, standing before a mirror in a designer suit the color of champagne. She was applying mascara. Preparing for her television moment. Her exposure of corruption. Her rise to national prominence. The knock on her door was quiet. The arrest was not. "Victoria Ashford," the federal agent said, holding his badge steady in the mirror's reflection, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering." She turned. Her face drained of color like someone pulling a plug from her veins. "Do you know who I am?" Her voice had lost its refinement. It cracked. "My lawyers will." "Your lawyers are being arrested too," the agent said. "We have everything. Your associates have been in federal custody for the last 3 hours. They're cooperating." The mascara wand fell from Victoria's hand. It rolled across her marble floor, leaving a dark line like a scar. 30 miles away in Wynwood, Team 2 entered Brennan's waterfront grill at 6:28 p.m. Tyler Brennan was working the dinner shift, moving between tables with the easy confidence of a man who had never experienced actual consequences. He was laughing at a customer's joke when he saw the federal agents push through the door in their dark windbreakers with gold letters across the chest. His laugh died. He ran. Toward the kitchen. Through the kitchen. His shoe caught the wet tile by the walk-in freezer. He went down hard. Elbows first. The sound of bone on floor. The agents caught him before he could stand, hands shaking as they cuffed him, his voice breaking into pieces. "I'll tell you everything." It was Victoria. She ran everything. "Please. I'll cooperate. Please." The officers dragged him through the dining room. Every customer watched. Every server stared. His final appearance in the restaurant, trembling like a cornered animal, begging, crying, the collar of his cheap polyester shirt riding up to show a tattoo he'd gotten when he still thought he was invincible. At 7:04 p.m., breaking news flashed across every screen in Miami. Not Victoria's expose. Breaking news about Victoria's arrest. The footage was devastating. Her perp walk across Star Island streets. Her hands cuffed behind her back. Photographers screaming questions. Her face, that perfect, philanthropic face, suddenly exposed as a mask covering something rotten. The video went viral in minutes. Social media exploded. Her charity board released a statement condemning her. Her business partners filed legal documents distancing themselves. Former clients who had attended her galas texted apologies to journalists. Her building removed her name from the entrance before she reached booking. By 7:52 p.m., she was a total non-person. Tyler Brennan's arrest aired on local news at 8:15 p.m. Perp walk footage showed him being led out of his restaurant in handcuffs. His eyes were red from crying. His hair was disheveled. His uniform was torn at the shoulder. The restaurant's parent company released a press statement before he even reached the police station. Brennan's waterfront grill permanently terminates the employment of Tyler Brennan effective immediately. Effective immediately? Before he could even make a phone call. Federal charges read on camera: Victoria Ashford facing 40 years minimum. Tyler Brennan facing 25 years. Both denied bail. Both bankrupt before the night ended, assets frozen, accounts seized, properties confiscated by federal order. Justice wasn't death. Death would be too quick. Too easy. Too merciful. Justice was systematic. It was mathematical. It was the complete and total dismantling of everything they had built. At 8:31 p.m., Vivien sat on her apartment's worn couch with Noah asleep against her shoulder. The television played the news on mute. She didn't need sound to understand what was happening. The photographs. The arrest photos. The faces of the people who had tried to destroy her, now facing federal judges. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. But she knew that number. She had memorized it without meaning to. 3 months of small gestures. 3 months of mysterious interventions. 3 months of protection from someone she had never asked to protect her. "You're safe now," Salvatore said. His voice was like thunder. Like an oath. "Both of them are done." Vivien couldn't speak. "How did you?" "I told you," he said. "You protected my son when I couldn't. I protect what matters to me." The line went quiet. But she could hear him breathing on the other end. Waiting. Giving her space to understand what he meant. "What matters to me?" The word settled into her chest like something finally finding its place. "Vivien," he said, and hearing her name in his voice was like warm light. "Yes?" "Don't be afraid anymore." He hung up. She sat in the darkness of her small apartment with Noah breathing softly against her shoulder and the television showing the final destruction of the people who had tried to keep her small. And for the first time in 8 years, she believed it might actually be true. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. 6 months had passed since the rain stopped falling. Vivien stood in the employee break room of the Coral Beach Resort and Spa, tying the silk scarf around her neck, navy blue, pressed that morning, perfectly knotted. The uniform fit differently now. The guest services manager's blazer hung on shoulders that had filled out, skin that had color again, a frame that no longer looked borrowed from someone else. She examined her reflection in the small mirror above the sink. 28 years old. She looked like someone who slept through the night. Someone who wasn't counting dollars in her pocket before deciding whether to eat. The hospitality degree hung framed in her apartment. She had earned it. Not through charity. Not through Salvatore's connections or his carefully placed phone calls. She had sat in those classrooms at night after her shifts, written papers with her own hands, passed exams with her own mind. The hotel hired her because the interview went well. Because she knew how to talk to people. Because she had survived things that most people never speak about, and that survival had shaped her into someone who understood suffering in other people's eyes and knew how to answer it with gentleness. At 8:11 a.m., she clocked in. The lobby gleamed with marble and morning light. The registration desk, the restaurant beyond it, the courtyard visible through tall windows, all of it represented the kind of world she had only glimpsed from the scooter 3 years ago, soaked in rain and desperation. Now she walked through it as someone who belonged. Her phone buzzed at 11:30. A text from Sergio. The message was short: "He wants to see you. Says it's important. Cafe at 2. Vivien's hand stilled on the keyboard. 3 months. Salvatore had been gone for 3 months. After the trial concluded, after Victoria Ashford received her 40-year federal sentence and Tyler Brennan was transferred to federal custody with a 25-year sentence hanging over him, after the news cameras moved to other stories and the city exhaled, Salvatore had simply vanished from her life. He paid the bills. The trust fund for Noah appeared in the account. The adoption paperwork moved through the system with efficient, unexplained speed. But he didn't visit. He didn't call. He had protected her from the shadows for months, and then he retreated back into them completely. She had asked Sergio about it once, 3 weeks ago, when she saw him at the grocery store near her apartment. Just a chance encounter. His face had hardened slightly, and he had told her something she couldn't stop thinking about. He doesn't think he deserves to be in Noah's life, Sergio had said quietly, his voice low so no one else could hear. He lost the boy once. The guilt is eating him alive. In 15 years, I have never seen him like this. The guilt is killing him. Now, at 2 o'clock, Vivien sat across from Sergio at the small cafe in Coral Gables. The afternoon sun filtered through the awning overhead. He looked uncomfortable, a massive man in an expensive suit squeezed into a chair designed for people much smaller. He ordered coffee. She ordered tea. "Where is he?" she asked. "Pinecrest," Sergio said. "The house." "He's waiting." "For what?" "For you to tell him it's okay." She set down her cup. The sound it made against the saucer was small, precise, the only noise between them for a moment. Around them, other people ate lunch and conducted business and lived the ordinary lives of people who had never been told that 8-year-old boys were being hunted for trafficking networks. People who had never stood in an underground poker room with $2 to their name and absolutely no way to save anyone. "It's not his choice to make," Vivien said. "Whether or not he's in Noah's life. That's not a decision that belongs only to him anymore." Sergio's eyes widened slightly. He wasn't used to people speaking that way, she realized. He was used to power flowing in one direction. From the top down. From the man who made the decisions to everyone else who followed them. "Tell him I'll be there at 4, she said. The Pinecrest house was exactly as she remembered. The iron gates opened at her arrival, as if Salvatore had told them to expect her. The driveway curved through landscaped grounds. The mansion rose like something from another world, all pale stone and tall windows and the kind of wealth that made everything around it smaller. She found him sitting on a bench in the garden behind the house, under the sprawling arms of a live oak tree. The massive man who commanded rooms full of dangerous people sat with his hands folded in his lap like a child waiting for punishment. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. She could see the scars on his wrists, pale lines that spoke of a violence he had lived through long before he became the one inflicting it. 20 feet away, Noah played on the swings that had been installed sometime in the past 3 months. He was wearing the new shoes that Vivien had bought him last week, bright red, high-top sneakers that he loved. His laughter carried across the garden in pure, unself-conscious joy. She sat down beside Salvatore on the bench. The wood was warm from the sun. "You're not just the man who throws money at problems," she said. Her voice was steady. "You're his father. And I didn't rebuild my life just to let you hide from yours." He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on Noah, drinking in the sight of him the way a dying person drinks water. "What if I fail him again?" His voice was so quiet she almost didn't hear it. "Then you get up and try again," Vivien said. "Like I did. Like everyone who survives does." She took his hand. His palm was calloused, scarred, warm. The hand of a man who had built an empire and torn it apart and was trying to rebuild something entirely different. "I didn't choose you because I needed saving," she continued. "I choose you because I want you. But you have to choose this too. All of it. Him. Me. The messy, complicated reality. Not the version where you disappear and send money. The real version." Salvatore's grip tightened on her hand like he was drowning. She called Noah over. The boy came running, his new shoes pounding the grass, breathless with the joy of movement and play. He stopped when he reached them, suddenly shy, suddenly aware that something important was happening. "Noah," Vivien said gently, "there's someone I want you to meet. This is Salvatore. He's your biological father. He's been looking for you for a very long time." Noah looked at the man on the bench. He was 8 years old and wise beyond his years, shaped by the shelter, by survival, by the knowledge that the world was both more beautiful and more dangerous than most children understood. "Miss Vivien says you helped us," Noah said. Salvatore tried to speak. Nothing came out. "Are you staying this time?" Noah asked. The question landed like a bell tolling. Not an accusation. Just a question. Just the literal truth that children speak without mercy or kindness, the simple fact that mattered most. "If you'll let me," Salvatore said. His voice broke like ice cracking under spring weight. "I want to stay. I want to try." Noah considered this the way he considered important things, his head tilted slightly, his eyes serious. Then he stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around Salvatore's neck. Salvatore broke. The most powerful man in Miami, the crime boss who had built an empire through will and fear and strategic ruthlessness, the man who had learned to show no weakness in any room, he broke completely. His shoulders shook. His forehead pressed against Noah's hair. Sergio, standing a respectful distance away near the garden entrance, turned and looked away, giving them privacy. Gino did the same. Vivien watched. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She had already cried enough for a lifetime. What she felt now was something quieter. Something like peace. Something like the kind of hole that only comes after you've been shattered and put yourself back together with your own hands. 1 year later, the rain came again. A summer thunderstorm rolled across Miami, heavy and warm, the sky splitting open with electricity and water. Vivien stood on the terrace of Salvatore's Pinecrest estate and let it drench her. Her hair clung to her face. Her dress, a simple white linen dress, became transparent, heavy with water. She tilted her face upward and let the rain wash over her like absolution. Salvatore joined her, wrapped his coat around her shoulders even though she didn't need it, even though the rain was warm. That was who he had become in the past year. The man who wrapped coats around people who didn't need them, just because the gesture meant something. The man who was learning, slowly and patiently, what it meant to love something more than power. Inside, Noah sat at the dining room table with Sergio and Gino, laughing at something Sergio had said. The adoption paperwork was finalized. Noah Ferraro. That was his name now. He had a father and a mother and a family that had been broken and remade into something stronger than before. Vivien had kept her job at the hotel. She still managed guest services. She still woke up early and tied the navy scarf around her neck and walked through the marble lobby as someone who belonged there. Salvatore still ran his empire, but the structure had changed. Legitimate businesses now. Real estate, hospitality, development. The kind of wealth that didn't require anyone to disappear into darkness. They didn't hide the hard parts of their stories from Noah. He knew about the trafficking networks and the people who wanted to hurt him. He knew about his mother's scars and his father's guilt. He knew that the world contained both Victoria Ashford's calculated cruelty and Vivien's measured gentleness, both Tyler Brennan's stolen tips and Salvatore's deliberate protection. He knew that sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment could change an entire life. The rain fell heavier. Thunder rolled across the sky like a voice. Vivien stood in it and felt completely, unexpectedly alive. Not rescued. Not saved. Alive. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to remember that broken things can be made whole again. Subscribe to this channel because tomorrow we're bringing you another story about the moment everything changes. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done in Vivien's position? What would you have chosen? We read every single one of your comments, and they matter more than you know. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We wish you good health, joy, and days filled with peace. No matter how hard life gets, remember that after the rain, the sky clears. Goodbye, and we'll see you again in the next video.